I'm here today to show you what it means to move out of pain and into our authentic power, and how if we created cultures where we supported the individual stepping into this power, we could change the world. Hi, I'm Jennifer, and this is my Oxford Talk. I was just getting settled in the labor and delivery room at 10 o'clock at night. The contractions were just starting to come strong enough that I couldn't sleep. By 2 a.m., I was struggling. I couldn't manage the pain. I couldn't push it down or control it or make it go away. The nurse, in an effort to help me, asked, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the pain? I remember thinking, how could I possibly answer that? I don't know what a 10 feels like. And can it always get worse? At that point, I called in the anesthesiologist to get the epidural. I had to find a way to numb the pain. 3 babies followed, and the answer to that question always eluded me. When the nurse asked it during my 4th labor, I said, I don't know, maybe I'm at a 3? This time, however, the nurse pulled out a visual pain chart, showed it to me, and said, girl, you're closer to a 9. A 9? How had I so drastically underestimated the pain I was feeling that day? For possibly the first time in my life, my pain had been validated. It gave me a reference point outside of my awareness to shine a light on what I was feeling. And after that experience, I started reflecting on my life. How many times had I thought I was at a 3, but was really feeling at an 8 or a 9? For example, as a young teenager, I was bullied about my weight. It hurt deeply. I remember being at a tennis match and listening to the girls from the other team try to take me down by making fun of my thunder thighs. I was crushed. And it worked because I lost the match. Or the times when someone close to me told me I was fat daily, and they laughed as they said it. They had so much power over me, and they knew it. In any typical story, there's often 3 main characters: the perpetrator, the victim, and the rescuer. We tend to take on one of these roles throughout our life, but a deeper life evaluation shows us that we play all 3 of them. My role of choice was the victim. Being made fun of was all I knew. I identified with the feelings and believed that they were just part of who I was. I had to learn that my feelings were not a direct result of the event itself. It's like those videos of a simulated car crash. We think that there is just one impact, but there really are 2. The first is when the car hits the object, and the second is when the dummy inside hits the airbag a few milliseconds later. Our worlds are no different. There is this outer physical world that you and I share, but there's also this inner spiritual world that exists within each of us. This inner one is deeply personal. Nobody will ever know what it feels like to be me, just as I will never know what it feels like to be you. When a traumatic event happens, the event is the first impact. However, there can be many impacts that follow, not only in our inner worlds, but also from our reactions to the initial impact. The whole point of the simulations is to learn how our cars could be improved to minimize the damage done by that second impact, and it's no different here. In order to transcend the role of victim, we have to recognize that the subsequent impacts are within our control. We have to pull ourselves out of our awareness and our limited perspectives and recognize that the stories we have created about the impacts are just a perception and not a fact. For over 20 years, I carried shame about my body long after the bullying stopped. When someone does something to us that we think is awful, we often feel entitled to hold it against them. Our ego, which I consider to be the overzealous and ungrounded gatekeeper of our inner world, wants to keep us safe, and nothing keeps us safer than putting the blame on someone else. One of my stories was to blame those people for my body insecurities. When we become aware of a story that our thinking mind holds to be true, we then must ask ourselves, how does this story feel for me? And listen with our bodies, not our minds. If you feel anything that we would consider a below-the-line emotion, things like anger, shame, guilt, or fear, we then need to detach ourselves from the story and write a new one. Those stories I created were all disempowering. They made me feel sad, angry, and shameful. When we accept stories that bring us down, we give some of our power away. Our work here is to bring that power back home where it belongs. We might have to question everything that we hold to be true about ourselves and about the world. The final question we have to ask is, how can I use this outdated belief as an opportunity to grow? In my case, I wanted to be a self-confident person. I wanted to be worthy. I also wanted to be more loving. It didn't feel good to be angry, so I practiced things like forgiveness and non-attachment to transcend and release the anger. This is not a quick process. It's not an intellectual activity that we sit down and answer these 3 questions, never to think of them again. Rather, we are learning to embody a new way of being, which takes time, discipline, and patience. Instead of living in our limitations, we get to become the storytellers of our lives. We are not the things that happen to us. The hero's journey is when we take ourselves out of the victim, perpetrator, rescuer paradigm, and we become the hero of our own story. When we go on a deep inner journey to discover what is real and what isn't, we emerge victorious to our own truth, and we take our power back. This is the never-ending journey of life, the constant discovery of who we really are and what we are capable of. When we do this, our lives take on a whole new meaning. And when we understand ourselves, we start understanding other people. Compassion comes almost automatically, and we drop any defenses that keep us separate from each other. I now stand strong in knowing who I am and that my strength stands no matter what in the world is happening around me. Do I fall sometimes? Of course. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. We are all humans, and part of our humanness is the ability to make mistakes. This isn't about perfection. It's about wholeness, and being whole includes the messy parts. So why am I here delivering this Oxford talk? Because I believe we live in a world where people are deeply in pain, projecting that pain all over and desperate to find their power. Only we are looking for it in all the wrong places. Wars, school shootings, gun violence, human trafficking, suicide rates, greed, and depression are just a few of the vast problems that seem to be growing in this modern age, not shrinking. Our egos have most of us believing that the fault lies outside of us and that having power over other people is the only true power. When we don't have control over our own power, we look for ways to take it from outside of us. We can see throughout time and history that those who look for power in this manner never find what they are looking for, ultimately ending up in their own destruction. Our entire modern way of life is organized in a hierarchy of external power. Albert Einstein said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking of which we created them." If we learn nothing else from our often tragic, gruesome, and bloody history, it should be this: the old view of power doesn't work. If we also look at history and see the people that made the biggest positive impacts, we will see this theme time and time again. They owned their power. They knew who they were and what they stood for, not against. They never allowed anyone to take it from them, and they in turn never tried to take it from anyone. We have to take radical responsibility for who we are, what we allow in as truth, and how we show up in the world. It's time for us to look within and recover the power that we've given away throughout our lives. In this system, there are no winners and losers because in the end, we are all on the same team. It's no longer me versus you. Now it's me with you. Together. The great poet Rumi said, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself." Thank you.